right, crew, welcome back to our channel for another episode of Beyond Ag Ed. And again, as you can see, we have a pretty fantastic guest joining us this morning. So Coach Cory, Coach Colleen, you already know us, but for those of you that might not have had the privilege of being in the agriculture education profession during the same time as our esteemed guest, Mr. Darol Fishman, Cory, would you give our friend the introduction that he very much deserves?
Absolutely. So today we have joining us Mr. Darol Fishman. I've had the pleasure of knowing Darol for, I want to say 6, 7 years. The first time I feel like we were formally introduced is you put on a Train the Trainer at Merced College. It was back between the summer where I was transitioning from Central to Madera. And it was an incredible 3-day ordeal that Darol had set up for, and I think there was like 5 of us there. But for small engines, diesel engines, just kind of getting us to think in a different light and prepare us for teaching those types of classes. And Darol and I seemed to hit it off pretty quick, honestly. I knew he was my kind of person, and it's been a pleasure knowing you this long, and it's awesome that we still keep in touch. And yeah, just super excited to have you on here. So if you wouldn't mind, if you would like to introduce yourself in terms of, what got you interested in, or I guess where did you start in terms of the ag world? And then what got you interested in becoming an ag educator, and what led you to, Merced College?
Wow. Well, thank you for that introduction. And it's been longer than 6 or 7 years because I've been retired 6. So put that into perspective. It's probably been 10 years since we did that. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Petaluma, California, born on a chicken ranch that was my family's. My dad was the last independent poultry operator in the state of California. And when he retired, I was long gone and off to Fresno State. So the ranch sold and there wasn't much to go back to. And actually, my dad said, no son of mine is going to raise one goddamn chicken as long as I'm alive. So that was not going to happen. I went through Petaluma FFA, Petaluma High School, where I had 2 mentors, and that would have been John DeYoung and Bill King. And as most ag teachers will tell you, their ag teachers were instrumental in seeing them into their career. Mr. King was my teacher. Mr. DeYoung was my advisor. I never took a single ag science class while I was at Petaluma High School at an FFA. I was a shop rat, and that's where I stayed. Mr. King got me active in FFA through the farm safety contest that was sponsored by the Sonoma County Farm Bureau. And once that happened and I found some success with that, off we went. I didn't have a very good experience with 4-H, and I thought 4-H and FFA were a lot alike, so I was not going to be involved at all. As a matter of fact, my father even kind of said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. Well, Mr. King quickly changed my mind, and off we went. Spent 3 years on an ag mechanic team. In my 3rd year, we were state champions and got to go back and see the big world of Kansas City, Missouri, where the national FFA contest and convention were, and that really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Just being able to travel and being with Mr. King, who was a one hell of a role model for many people. Graduated from Petaluma, got my American Farmer degree, which my father at one point in time when we were shoveling chicken manure in number 2 brooder house was talking about. We were talking about degrees in advance, and my dad says, there's no way you'll ever get that because we don't make enough money. Well, hard work paid off and got my degree, made the trip. My father made the trip. And he was so impressed with the happenings at the national convention that my mother passed away when I was a sophomore in high school. So he took some money and set up an account, and that went to pay for part of the trip for Petaluma's representative to go to the national convention every year, and it was named in honor of my mother, the Colleen Fishman Memorial. Changed that event, that happening, that convention changed my father's view of FFA like nothing else. So that award still happens. My brothers and I, we sponsor the award now, and it's going on for 40 plus years. And we're very proud of that fact. It has changed names because nobody remembers who Colleen Fishman was except for the three of us. So there we go. Went to Fresno State. Actually, I went to Santa Rosa Junior College, and I've told this story before. I told it at my Hall of Fame induction, which I am just honored and thrilled to have been inducted into that. When you look at the names in there, I mean, it's like a who's who, and it's such a humbling experience. But I mentioned I went to Santa Rosa Junior College. I was enrolled for a year. I didn't necessarily attend classes. I was enrolled at Santa Rosa Junior College because I got a job in a welding shop and was making big bucks. And all my other friends, they were salting hides and packing hides at 3 o'clock in the morning at Rancho Feeding. And I had a job at a welding shop to do what I learned. And so I kind of didn't go to a lot of classes. And Jim Porter pulled me off to the side one day and he said, "Fishman, my advice to you, you need to go to Fresno State and never, ever tell them that you attended Santa Rosa Junior College." And true story. So I took a year off, worked for Beecham's Welding in Petaluma, got some experience, and through arm twisting from my boss and Mr. King, applied to go to Cal Poly, was not accepted because I applied so late, but went to Fresno State. And probably the best thing that ever happened was going to Fresno State because I met my wife. And you've met my wife, and she's gonna be put up for sainthood when that day arrives because of me and my stupidity and just the way I am. Got out of Fresno State, had the influence of Ben Fromm, was very fortunate to have him as an advisor and as an instructor, worked for him, applied those things that I learned in high school at Beecham's Welding, and basically an independent thinker, worked for Ben Fromm for all 4 years. I was at Fresno State on the weekends and during the summer. And then my first job, come around, got my student teaching done. I was so fortunate to student teach under Jack Chappell. Jack was instrumental. He taught at Fowler High School, and he was Fowler High School was one of the pilot programs for the Ag Incentive Grant. So I was fortunate to work with Jack and took a lot of his classes while he was making trips to Sacramento to kind of iron things out. So I taught at Fowler. My first job was at Exeter High School, working with Larry Lakey and David Henderson. I still keep in touch with David Henderson. Spent 3 years there. Richard Jacobson at LeGrand High School. He and I were college roommates for 4 years. And we always thought we met at Santa Rosa Junior College of all places, underneath a tree drinking adult beverages on campus before Porter talked to me. And so Rich and I always thought it would be really cool if we could teach together. And the opportunity came. So I left Exeter and went to LeGrand High School and worked with Richard for 7 years. These teachers that come out and they whine and bitch and complain about their shop situation and how small their shop is and how they don't have this, they don't have that. I worked in a 40 by 50 Quonset hut with no heating and it had heating and air conditioning. They just didn't work in the right season. We gauged our time in the shop to get stuff ready for Merced Fair when it was in July. We gauged how long we worked in the shop by the thermometer on the wall. When it hit 100 degrees, we were done. We didn't base it on time. We based it on temperature. And we've turned out some great projects out of the shop. State Fair, we had outstanding projects here and there out of a 40 by 50 for lack of a better term, shithole Quonset hut. It was horrid. Ag mechanics teams, we put it to them. We ended up, we won every contest except the big one out of LeGrand, had 2 high individuals in the state out of this Quonset hut. So any of these young teachers that come out that complain about their facility, it's not the facility. It's what's in the heart. It's what's here. And all it takes is dedication to get things rocking and rolling. Well, I got frustrated teaching in that facility, and they tried several times to get a bond going, but couldn't make that happen. So a shop wasn't going to happen. So I applied for a position at Chowchilla High School to work with Steve Obad and Kim Donaher and Vicky Farmer, and spent 4 years at Chowchilla. And that's one of my questions on here, one of my advices to young people. And we'll get to that. Chowchilla was a pressure cooker, because you went from one activity to another, to another, to another. And our projects that went to the fair, Jeff Jeffries, who taught at Santa Maria when I first started, and I competed in high school against his teams, he left me with some wisdom, and that wisdom was projects you build for the fair, if they can't fit in the back of a pickup, they're too big. And I didn't take that advice. We built some huge, we took a caravan from Chowchilla to State Fair, triplanes and scrapers and just tons of stuff. And it kept me away from home, which we'll get into later on too. So 4 years at Chowchilla during the summer, just before state finals in 1997. I got a call from another gentleman who was instrumental in my career, who recently just passed, and that's Ken Heupel. Ken taught at Merced College for many, many years, got out of there, and I got a phone call from Ken Heupel, and it was very simple. He used to live just down the road here. He was on our advisory committee at LeGrand, and he asked a simple question, and that is, are you going to apply? I go, for what? He goes, you get the Merced Sun Star? I go, yeah. He says, well, you need to open the want ads and look, there's a position open at Merced College. So I applied for it and happened to get it, and spent the next 21 years of my career at Merced College, working with some fantastic people, some fantastic students, and still keep in touch with a lot of them. The people I work with, still keep in touch with. Jim Anderson, Kim Donaher, our secretary, Karen Wallace. My years at Merced were family, and still keep in touch with a lot of the students. Merced was interesting because I worked with everything from the class valedictorian to that gentleman that walked in the back door with the ankle bracelet trying to straighten his life out. Fantastic career. Taught there 21 years, woke up one morning, kind of had a bad semester, decided that's it, I'm done. Turned in my letter of resignation. My birthday was March 1st, turned it in on March 2nd. And my last day at Merced College was June 1st of 2018. So I missed COVID. I missed all the crap you guys had to go through with COVID. Yeah.
That's how I learned how
Couldn't have
to do stuff like this. I mean, that whole process of taking what you had to do, in person, and then figure out how to, for lack of a better word, like digitalize or whatever, make everything digital, right? Like, it's mind-boggling to me that we did that.
Oh my God, how you people dealt with any of that? Well, I know how Cory dealt with it. Yeah, I would have loved to watch you stick around long enough to stick that right where but yeah, I missed COVID. I did a lot of my stuff on PowerPoint, created my own PowerPoints. YouTube was a dream, but I still had some lessons that I couldn't figure out how to make all that work. I still used an overhead projector in 2017, 2018, an overhead projector that you would write and demonstrate stuff on. That was part of my lessons. And it's not, you can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't have the ability to impart that knowledge, it doesn't matter how you impart it. Everything else is just a tool. Again, it all comes from the heart and how you do that. So
You saying that, Darol, I wrote down that quote you said. It's not about the facilities, but it's what's in the heart. One of the things that I noticed
there'll be a
about
fee.
you,
If I see that, there'll be a fee for it.
well, I mean, we'll have to see where this goes. Um, no, to be honest, when I first met you, it was pretty simple to pick up on your character and the person that you were. And one of the things that I appreciated most about you is that you're all in. Like when you commit to something, you're getting every bit of Darol Fishman. Like it's full bore. There is no holding back. Um, and I'm sure that's probably why you've had a successful career and continued to have success even past retirement. But what do you think instilled that in you? Like what made that? I mean, is that something that just kind of from your upbringing, or was it something you had to teach yourself?
That's all work ethic. And my father taught me work ethic. When you run a small chicken ranch, we didn't, when you see ranches today and they were starting to roll around back in the 60s when I was a kid growing, I was born in 58, and I was out working side by side with my dad at 6 and 8 years old, not doing a lot, but thinking I was important. We did everything by hand. We didn't have a tractor that went in and moved chicken manure out of a house into a pile. We didn't have scrapers, and every bit of manure that was shoveled out of those houses went onto a flatbed truck and was hauled up and stockpiled in the back of the ranch. There was no automatic feeders. Everything had to be fit. Everything was put by a bin, was in a bin. You'd put it in a bucket and you'd pour however many buckets Dad told you of feed to put in the hoppers. That's what we did. And my brothers could not work with my dad. There was no way. They just absolutely not. My dad and I got along fine. Just do what the old man says and do it his way. Spreading straw, shoveling manure, spreading shavings. It was done his way. Doesn't matter what you thought. So that's where that came from. As far as everything else, you use the term all in, that would have to come from Mr. King. Yeah. He spent a tremendous amount of time and making sure that his students were successful in whatever they did, whether it was that simple little farm safety contest, ag mechanics teams. He's got, the man, this marks his 10th year of passing this year. He passed in 2014. And up to that point, he has 14 state champion plaques up on the walls. That doesn't happen because you're not all in. That doesn't just happen. It happens because you have expectations of students. We were expected to be to practice on time, no lollygagging around. You be there on time. You give it your all the whole period. There was never any of this. Are we done yet? Can we go now? You just did what you did. And everything was always prepared. We always knew what was going to happen well ahead of time. And that's where that organization thing in the classroom came from. My classes, with very few exception, my students knew what was going to be happening day in and day out at the community college level. High school, different story. Chowchilla, I taught all fabrication, so you spend a lot of time in the shop. But that's just the way things were. If I had to do it different, I would probably do my high school teaching different, especially at Chowchilla. Everything was at Chowchilla was geared toward that big project going to the fair. That was the goal. I look back now and I would probably do things different. So yeah, you've got to be all in. That's the bottom line.
What would you do? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no,
is that what you're going to ask, Colleen?
This is what happens. What would you do differently and why? What's the outcome that you think would have shifted if your approach had been different, and why is that important to you?
The ribbons and student success became the driving force, not so much the education.
Got it.
And for that, I don't know the right word that I would use. But I became so focused on winning that stuff that that next ribbon, that next golden bear, that next whatever we had, that I neglected my family. There was a 10-day period leading up to Merced Fair that I didn't see my boys during the daylight hours. And many times they were in bed before I got home, and I was out of the house before they got up. And my wife sat me down and said, something's got to happen. Something's got to change. So it was either scale back at Chowchilla or apply for go a different direction, which was the chance at Merced College.
Sure.
Yeah. I think so many times. And I think young teachers now, I think they have a better vision of doing that. And I don't know why they are able to find that balance. You know, I sat on several boards with Jean Landine, our regional supervisor, on balancing life and career. And I don't know why the hell she asked me, because I was the wrong example to be asking that. And but I sat on these panels and I'm going, I even told my wife, I go, why the hell am I doing this? Because I am not the example to follow as a high school teacher. And I would lay awake at night dreaming up exercises for my ag mechanics teams to do. I spent more time with my ag mechanics teams than I did my own kids. But when it came time for my kids, I made the time and did that. I didn't miss many baseball games because they played right there in Chowchilla, so it was easy to do.
Yeah. I'm curious for you that, I mean, maybe it's part of that all-in mentality and certainly your work ethic. But for you, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but just that drive, was that more self-imposed, or were there also external factors that, I don't know, quote unquote, made you feel like you had to show up in that way?
Cory, thank you for sending these interview questions. It helped kind of find some focus and that type of thing. And one of the questions on here is, what advice would you give incoming ag teachers that will provide them an opportunity to find early success? And one of those is, you have to find a program that fits you. It's that pressure. You want to be in a pressure cooker. You understand that you're going to go to into a Chowchilla was a pressure cooker.
Mm-hmm.
So that drive, that community drive, that drive from within. Steve Obed had made the monster. Now it had to be fed, and we kept doing and going and going. When you spend 36 hours straight in the shop with just a nap at your desk to try to get a project ready for a fair, and when it goes to the fair, when it gets there, you have to wipe the bugs off of it because the paint's still tacky, something's not right. And I don't think I would go through all that again. Yeah, it's that pressure cooker. And then when you combine that with that work ethic of it has to be done right, it was, yeah, it happened. It was good because we go to the fair and we just clean house. You know, the major awards, we left nothing on the table for anybody else. Several years, 95, we left nothing, zero. Chapter group, outstanding this, outstanding, but at what price? You know, at what price? They get a piece of, Steve Obed always called plaques, piece of Presto log, and start the fireplace with, and at what price? So, yeah, you got to be careful. Pick the place that you work should fit your personality. If you want LeGrand was easy. LeGrand was a piece of cake because they had nothing. Walking into that shop, if I had taken and created a mousetrap and took it to the fair, I was a hero.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing coming out of the shop. And that's Richard had taken over the wood side, the construction side, and was taking some beautiful stuff to the fairs, but there was nothing coming out of the metal side. So that first year was like, I'm God. I'm on a pedestal. It was so cool. And that just fed upon itself. But yeah, you have to, there was no pressure. But Chowchilla, yeah, there was a lot of pressure.
Do you believe in balance, Darol? Like between, you know, And I heard about this a lot as a new ag teacher. Is like, well, you have to have balance. And I realized, and this is my perspective, but I think balance is bullshit because if the scale's not tipping one way, then things are stagnant. Something feels weird, like we're off a little bit. Do you believe that there's some type of equilibrium that can provide balance, or do you think that you're kind of always tipping one way or another, whether it's family, whether it's the profession, whether it's a hobby, whatever way that is? Do you think that there's such thing as balance?
I don't know about balance. I think it's more about priority. What do you make priority? My son and daughter-in-law both teach. Daniel's at El Cap, does a fantastic job. Oh my God. I wish I was half the teacher at the high school level that he is. Shelby's at Atwater, and she's a barn burner. She just got elected to regional office. She's teacher of excellence, active in CATA, active in this. Daniel, CATA, not so much. That's not his thing. He doesn't like the politics of what goes on at some of the meetings and that type of thing. If you look at those two, they've got that balance, if you want to call it balance. They get their kids to daycare. They've given us two lovely granddaughters. My other son's down in Texas. I'd love to see those more often, but unfortunately, a lot of it is through video chat or whatever they do anymore. But Daniel and Shelby, they have their priorities set where the kids and their personal well-being takes precedent over their career. Their health and well-being makes their career successful because it's their escape. It's their out. They're huge into CrossFit. Oh my God, they're CrossFit junkies. Oh my God. You CrossFit? Do you CrossFit?
Not as religiously as they do.
Oh my God.
We've stayed in touch. Yes.
They're insane.
I know.
Daniel's got my drive. He's got that, got to be number one, got to be at the top. And he's taken that into CrossFit. And when he does his workouts, it's all in, absolutely all in. With his teaching, he's all in the fact that he's a CWI, so he can certify his students. He's taken the time to do that. He's applied for a lot of grants and getting into schools to better his welding skills, not for himself, but for his students.
Yeah.
So his welding team, he pushes them. He does what he has to do. Shelby, goes without saying. I mean, she's had so much success, and to see her work with students in a non-traditional role as a shop teacher reminds me a lot of Cindy Rohde and Sherry Johns, where those boys, normally in a situation like that, those boys, and I've seen it work on the other extreme. The boys in those shop classes, they just, when she says jump, they don't just jump. They ask, how high do you want me to jump? I'll jump on the table if you want me to. I'll do a box jump for you. But they're fantastic because if you look at them, they have that balance that I could never find. I couldn't do that. My escape, my physical escape was dirt bikes. So when I had the opportunity, I'd go ride. But when the spring rolls around, as Daniel found this last spring, there's no time. So you have to make time to do that stuff. But they at 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, if there's nothing to do around the shop, nothing to do at school, Daniel doesn't look for crap to do. Me, I'd look for all the shit in the world to do because I wanted to make sure that I had those things done. And so next thing I know, I'm looking at my watch and it's 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Thank God my wife picked up the kids because I probably forget them. And I have. And I did. And I'd get that phone call from daycare going, are you supposed to be here? Oh, shit. Jump in the pickup, go pick them up. Pick the kids out of the shop and go pick up my own kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as, I don't know if it's a balance, but it's a priority. And I think that needs to be established. One of the things I see with a lot of the younger teachers is, and I'm going to use the term, they're lazy, and I'm not sure why. By my standards, maybe they do a great job, but by my standards, they're lazy. They don't run a team. They don't do this. They don't do that. I didn't run a team my first year because I didn't have the caliber of student where I wanted them. So I focused on my classroom, and that's what you get paid to do. You get paid to be in a classroom, period. So I don't know if that answered your question.
And we've said things like
Yes.
or Cory. So
That's weird. It's like an echo coming back our way. No, that you talk about that prioritizing over balance, and I really like that word. But again, I'm gonna sit here and pat you on the back again, Darol, because one of the things that I think again allowed us to hit it off originally was the fact that you did prioritize fitness. For those who don't know, this man runs triathlons. He just finished. Tell us about your motorcycle race. That's freaking badass, dude.
Well, a month ago, I did Morro Bay Triathlon, 70.3. And that's a 1.2 mile swim and a 56-mile bike and a 13.1 mile run. And I had a bad day. The swim is what it is. They say you're not supposed to have to swim uphill, but we did. And because in Morro Bay, the current was coming in and the tide was rising. So you had to swim uphill. And there were over 300 people that didn't finish that, just the swim. 300 people out of like 1,400 registered. There was a huge DNF number. And I got through it. My buddies got through it. But my swim happened because of some other stuff that I did to prepare for it. Bike was fine. Run sucked because I got lazy on my run. I didn't, that all in thing. Nah, I just couldn't get my run going. So last weekend, and I'm still paying the price. I'm bruised here. My feet are, the swelling's finally gone down on my feet. The bottom of my feet were black and blue. Blisters on my hands are finally fading. I did a 10-hour off-road motorcycle race and started at 8, ended at 6, and rode 161 miles pretty much nonstop. I got off the bike twice to sit in a chair and eat and do what I had to do. But yeah, that's what I do. But I didn't start doing that till late in my career. I think my first triathlon was like 54, 55 years old. Prior to that, I was all dirt bike.
What got you started in that? Like, why did you choose that as your new hobby?
It chose me. I didn't choose it. Daniel and Shelby did an event at Merced College. And it was a pool swim, started with a pool swim and then a bike and then a run. So Teresa and I went up there to go watch them. And this was before they were married. And we see them in the pool and they're doing their thing. And I'm looking at some of the old people in the pool, old people. And this one fat bastard, if he did this, I could do this. I was tipping over 200 pounds. I was like 210, 215, and I needed to lose weight. And it just seemed like a better thing to do and more fun to do than going to Weight Watchers saying, "Hi, my name's Darol and I'm a fat bastard." So I did it as weight loss. And my first event, I had no guidance, no help. I knew nobody, and I made so many mistakes. I would never let that happen again. So now, if somebody wants to try their first triathlon, I won't give them coaching as far as when to work their workouts in, but just the idiosyncrasies of a triathlon to go through transition. What can you expect when you do this, when you do that? One of the instructors, English instructor at Merced College, he just did his first triathlon, 70.3 at Morro Bay. And we spent time together explaining to him how things, the logistics of getting through it. I didn't tell him when to swim, how much to swim, the logistics, because I absolutely refuse to allow somebody to flounder like I did. So, yeah.
That's the teacher in you.
That's how that goes. Yeah. It is.
That's
It
what I'm
is.
thinking the whole time, hearing you tell that story and just picturing um the other conversations and the mentorship of all the people who've gotten to work with you or learn from you, whether just, in a workshop or, kind of longer term professionally. But I think it's interesting the way that you describe those transition points. And at least for me, kind of looking back at, I think I was just shy. I was like literally, based on when I got my credential, I was a few months shy of the full 10 years in ag education before I left. But the greatest challenges I faced were at some of those kind of life transition points. And then looking at, what all in looked like throughout those different phases, how phenomenal it would be to have more Darol Fishmans that were coaching educators through those transition points, or having the conversations of, you need to find the place where you belong. It might not be your first teaching placement, right? And then how to go about building some of that skill set the way that you have, I think is really inspiring.
It was a great career, and I was in it for 35 years. And do I have regrets? Yeah, there's things I should have done, things I shouldn't have done. I can proudly say that I've never had a letter placed in my file. Kim Donaher always called me Dudley Do-Right, because here's your parameters and here's the rules. You just follow the rules. You don't do this, you don't do that. Okay, I can do that. And I have never had a letter put in my file. I've been called into the principal's office, but I've never had a letter put in my file. Absolutely not.
Talking about rules, I was asked kind of an interesting question recently. I was catching up with someone else from ag education, and he asked me, to kind of reflect back on the first, year or two that I was teaching. And his question was, how did you know what the expectations were of you as an ag teacher? And I had to think about it for a minute, because for me, there wasn't like, I mean, we have our professional standards for sure, but there wasn't necessarily a place or a person or a time that someone kind of sat me down and said, hey, that like, this is what you do as a first year teacher. You need to focus on this, this, and this. Here's your lane. Here's the parameters, as you said, right? That never, like that just never really happened, at least in my case. I'm curious for you, if we asked you that same question, how did you come to know, or how did you decide what the expectations were of you as an ag teacher?
Mr. King and Mr. DeYoung. That's it. When we went to conference and we all got up on stage, and they took me out to lunch at, it's not Olive Garden, it's Olive something there in San Luis, where there's a motel there with this restaurant. And every time I drive by it, I tell my wife the same story. So they took me to lunch. And one of the things that Mr. DeYoung said, one thing to remember in this profession, your initial function, number one, is your classroom, period. And that's what you get paid to do. Administrators, no matter how you do at an FFA event, no matter how you do at the fair, no matter how you do anywhere else, that's not what matters to them. What matters to them is what you do in the classroom, and don't cause them any grief.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. That's in a nutshell. You have to just live the golden rule. Do unto others as you would treat your students as human beings, regardless of who they are. Yeah, we've all had turds in our programs, in our classes. But I've had those turds that could not get along with anybody else on campus, no other teacher, but yet they would perform magnificently for me.
Yep.
Because I treat them like a human being. I had a young man at Chowchilla High School, and I hope I can use names on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Young man by the name of Ben Moran. And Ben was one of those students who was a pain in the ass for every other teacher. And one day in the teacher's lounge, teacher's room, which I spent very little time in because I found it to be very depressing and just a crappy place to be for people to bitch and complain. And they were talking about students, and one of them mentioned Ben. I said, he doesn't cause me any problems. Well, all he does to me is just this and that. Well, it was English and math. He needed to keep his hands busy because that's what he did. So a graduation, which he barely got through, went up, but shook his hand, and I said, good job. What are your plans? He said, well, probably going to go get a job and do this and that. And he shook my hand again, and he said, thank you, Mr. Fishman. You're the only one that ever treated me like a human being at this school.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an eye-opener. Just treat people like human beings. As I mentioned earlier, I've had everything from the class valedictorian to the convicted felon with the bracelet on, who's on his last step to being, put wherever he's got to be put. And those are the ones that are high up here on that list of successes. A lot of people base their success on, and that's why I hate applications. I hate applying for awards because I always ask, and when you apply for an award for community, as a community college teacher, you don't have those state farmers. You don't have all those teams. You don't have all that stuff. I have the number of students I put to work, and I can't give you a number, but I can give you some examples. And those are the one that is above and beyond everything. But that had changed over time. My first years of teaching, yeah, that silver bowl meant a lot. Worked my ass off to try to get it. Never got it. I have 7 second places in the state finals ag mechanics contest, but not one silver bowl. But those kids, I still keep in touch with many of them. But it's those students that you take from nothing to actually getting them a job to be able to work.
Yeah.
They become productive citizens of society. They don't have their hand out. They're not on subsistence. They're not on this or not on that. They're making a living. That's the important part of teaching. Yeah.
I think especially like for me specifically, but having had the opportunity to get familiar and become acquainted, more than acquainted with especially some of the legends at the post-secondary level, but yourself, Gary Winter, who's helped me in so many ways. And then,
Amazing.
He is an amazing human, and we're going to have him on here as well at some point. And, God rest his soul, Ken Hoyple. But between, I would say, the three of you, I learned a lot professionally. I learned, Gary, replacing Gary at the college, just showing me the ropes and explaining that, this is how some things are going to be, right? And then taking basically the trainer with you and picking your brain on just some of this mechanical knowledge. And then Ken, just being Ken, through years at Fresno State. But what I took from all three of you more so was the personal side of things. Just the life lessons that you guys were able to articulate. And I knew just gut feeling and obviously from experience myself, how many lives you've been able to affect on a personal level. Like we talked about it on here a few weeks ago, and I can't remember what episode it was, but I can guarantee none of my students really gave a shit about how a carburetor works. Like, did it help them in life? Maybe a few of them, maybe, but it was those life lessons. It was how my shop was set up, which was exactly or very close to the way that you taught me how to set up a shop. Tell students are like surgeons. You're going to take this engine apart. You need to know where everything is. You need to be clean. You need to be organized. That's how my shop was ran. It's incredible just the things that you pick up from people like that, and just your years of experience and between the three of you, just from a personal side, the things that I was able to obtain, I just am very grateful. And I know that everybody, the thousands of lives that you've influenced, are equally, if not more, grateful.
And none of that is quantitated. You can't quantify any of that on an application.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely not. It can't be done. And, they try. what is it? The R2 report. You're supposed to keep track of your students after high school and this and that. The easiest way for me to keep track of students is I still have a lot of their numbers in my phone. So every once in a while, I'll send a text to here, or one of them will pop up. I'll be going through looking at contacts. Oh, I haven't talked so-and-so in a while. And some of the numbers have changed and along those lines. But, my students at the college, they came from Los Banos, they came from Gustine. They had to drive, some of them had to drive an hour to get there. Had a couple drive actually from Fresno. And for those students, we've all been you go to a class and there's a note pinned on the wall. They're not going to, class canceled today. Jesus, what am I going to have them drive an hour? Maybe at that time it was the only class they had for the day. Screw their whole day up. So I put all their numbers in my phone, and I had them fill out an information card, figure out where they lived and all that other fun stuff from the high school days. My own personal R2 report that was kept strictly confidential, and I let them know that. It goes in the back of my book, and that my roll book that I hand marked. But on a day that I was going to be absent, I sick, injured and I always told them I may not be in on a Monday because I got hurt riding on a Sunday. I would call each and every one of them. I would start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'd wake them up, but tell them, we're not going to have class today because I can't make it in. It's just it's just a courtesy to them. They're your product. If it weren't for them, you wouldn't have a job. So you need to extend some of that to them. And there were some teachers that, they'd come in and they'd complain about this. They were cancel class again. And it just, you just got to be kind to people. Treat them like human beings. How you would expect to be, to be treated. So, yeah. And then all of this is not it's a team effort. See my wife walking down the hall. She's gotten into making quilts. That's her thing. She has made some fantastic quilts. So she's in building. I build crap. She makes these quilts. Everybody that has a baby now gets a quilt. And so for Christmas, I got her a new sewing machine and it did a little more. But she's the reason I'm able to do the things that I do. We're a team. She's attended, and I've said this many times, she's attended more sessions at conference than some ag teachers have in their entire career, because that's just what she does. Yeah, she's a saint. They're going to put her up for sainthood when that day happens. If they don't, I'll have to go kick somebody's ass because they missed it. So, yeah, it's a team effort. And that's like Daniel and Shelby. They've got their thing. It's a team effort with their kids. It's a team effort. That CrossFit thing, that's their family thing. They take the kids, they got daycare, they do everything they got to do. But yeah, my other two, David and Emily. See, David, they're down in Texas. Emily is like the farm manager for Forney and North Forney High School. And when time rolls around, her function is to deal with all the livestock projects. They do it different in Texas. I always thought they did it great in Texas. They do crap in Texas, in my opinion, but it's all backward. We went to their banquet, their end of year awards, whatever they want to call this thing. Not one kid was in an FFA jacket. And I'm like, why is this? It's just not expected. And this is Texas. So, but they kind of do the same thing in that team effort. Emily gets the kids to daycare, and then David pick them up, and Emily going during fair and show season. That's what they do. They hit probably, I don't know. It seems like a dozen, but they probably do 5, 6 fairs and shows. So there's always something going on. David's in there assisting her, hauling stock, cleaning pens, doing what he's got to do. It's got to be a family affair. Very proud of what they do as well. Emily's done a great job with that program, getting them to where they need to be. But so anyway. that's where we are.
So it's starting to kind of bring our conversation to a close, and just knowing that we have a variety, newer, pardon me, some folks that are newer to the profession, and then we know that there's still a few others that have maybe been in it a bit longer. But if you had one piece of advice for ag teachers today, right now, what's the number one thing that you wish they would either do or stop doing?
I hate these kind of questions. It's like the question you're always asked in an interview, what's your philosophy of education? I don't have a philosophy of education. Just teach. Do what you have to do. I really don't have an answer for that, except to say that young teachers, I wish they had more practical experience to come into the profession. You used to have, and when I say used to, I got my credential in 83. I am the last class to ever have a life credential. So there used to be a requirement when you went into ag teaching that you had to have so many hours of practical experience. I don't know if that's still in play. A lot of our young teachers now, they get into teaching because they had an influential ag teacher and they went to FFA state conference and they went to these leadership events and they thought it'd be really fun to do. They went to 4 years of school and they didn't work their way through school because mom and dad said, you're going to study, you're not going to have to work. So they come out and they don't have any practical experience to bring into that classroom. You talk about life experiences. If you haven't worked for somebody who's chewed your ass out for doing the wrong thing, how are you going to impart that knowledge to your students that this is what an ass chewing feels like? Yeah, Daniel worked for a gentleman here in La Grande, and his dad was always in the shop. Daniel come home one day, he was just irritated, just Bert this and Bert that, and Bert was set in his ways. Bert's now 90 years old, I think, and he come home and he's just driving. I said, well, go talk to Aaron, who he was working for. So he went and talked to Aaron, Bert's his dad, and Aaron says, Daniel, you're always going to have to work with the Bert Johnsons of life. So you might as well get used to it now. And he's carried that throughout. And man, what a piece of wisdom that is. But they need to have more practical experience in whatever they're teaching. You know, a lot of them go into, it's either OH or animal science. Those are the two big majors. But then when they get put into a situation where they have to teach small engines, or they have to teach an introduction to ag mechanics class, they've had one class, maybe. If they went to Chico, they never had any small engines. Shelby took Shelby and another Celia Casso, and we did a mini workshop for 3 or 4 days at the college because that's what they had to do. But that practical experience, working for Dean Beecham, working for Ben Fromm, working my way through school. Oh yeah. Everything I learned there, I just took right into the classroom. How to prep a project, how to do this and how to do that. So valuable. And we don't have that now. They come out, they want to do whatever they want to do because they're all turned on because of all the rah-rah crap with FFA. And there is so much rah-rah. That's why we don't have enough boys in ag teaching. They don't like the rah-rah stuff. Just ask them, they'll tell you. We need more young men to come into the profession. Not that I'm a sexist, but when I sit there and I look up and I put the circle with the cross and the circle with the arrow, and I'd start counting off how many men, how many women, and you look at the percentage of that. Not saying that women aren't good ag teachers, they are. My daughter-in-laws are prime examples of that. They're fantastic. There are some wonderful people out there, wonderful ladies. But the boys need a male role model.
Yeah.
Here at LeGrand,
Representation matters.
what's that?
Representation matters. You've got to see, you need to see people that look like you and having that strong male role model. Absolutely.
You go to LeGrand High School and it's a high Hispanic population. They're probably 99%. And in that culture, a woman in the wrong environment is not healthy. It's not good. It's not viewed upon. Call me racist if you will. I don't care. But these are the facts. And in that culture, that doesn't work. They may not have the same respect for a female in a shop situation. And it's not just LeGrand. It's statewide. It's wherever your community may be. They may not have the same respect for a male in that particular situation, or for a female as they will for a male. We need to get young men into this profession. And it's not just in the classroom. What do you do on field trips? What do you do on overnight trips? We were always taught that when you drop students off, this was under Rich Rogers at Fresno State, when you drop students off, the last one you drop off is always a male. You never leave yourself in the vehicle with a female. And so what are you going to do now that you have males and females on this trip and you're a female? What if something goes haywire? I'm a male. What's going to happen if those girl problems pop up that I can't deal with because I don't deal with that kind of drama in my life? Absolutely not. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did.
I digressed a lot.
Yeah, we
I'm pretty-
appreciate it though.
I'm pretty politically incorrect. I really don't care.
Happily welcomed.
Keeps life fun.
From your perspective, what are some of the biggest issues that ag educators face? And the first one I put down was political correctness. Because they do. This crap of allowing that kid to identify as a cat in my classroom is bullshit. Jim Ashwanden, we do our rat breakfast, once a month. We all get together. All us retired ag teachers all get together. And I was talking to Ashwanden one day about it. And Ashwanden goes, if I had one like that in my classroom, that assignment for that student who identifies as a cat, every day that cat would go out to the greenhouse, because I have mice in my greenhouse and I need them killed. And that's what that cat's going to do. You want to be a cat? You go out to the greenhouse and you be a cat. And I want to see some mice. So yeah, I couldn't deal with it.
I can hear him saying that.
Oh God. Yeah. Just,
In his voice.
you just set him, you just wind him up and turn him loose. That's what you do.
Oh.
So anyway.
Well, these are the conversations that we built this to have, to be honest, and to reiterate a lot of things that you've said. The foundation of this message that we're trying to portray to people, despite what some think, is two things. Number one, being the best version of yourself, and number two, being a classroom teacher is the most important thing that you could do if you were going to stay in this profession. And this is from, well, now 3 teachers, former teachers, looking from the outside in, right? And we all have that same message. And I feel like you embody those values for what we're trying to articulate to both young, seasoned, and older teachers still in the profession. So as we wind down, Colleen, do you have any questions for Darol? Final thoughts?
I think I asked all the ones that were on my list, but I just want to say thank you again. I mean, I don't know you personally as well as Cory, but I've certainly experienced firsthand and been the recipient of, your influence and impact. And I've gotten to work with Daniel and Shelby. We went through the teacher education program through Chico State. And I'll never forget, it might have been I forget which course it was, but I remember us being miserable every single friggin' week going into this class because no offense if you're a history teacher or friends with one, but the history group, they just treated us like absolute crap. They looked down on us every time we walked in. And so to get a little sassy, I kept wearing my hungry and naked t-shirt to class. Where would you be without agriculture? You would be hungry and naked.
Hungry and naked.
I wore it every single week. I always made sure it was clean. I mean, there were the days that sometimes I would make sure it smelled a little bit like, cow shit from the farm, but we would go and they discounted us everything. And so then we come to the end. I'll never forget. It was the end of the semester, turned in our big like unit project or whatever. And the teacher was making a big deal about I think there was only 2 or 3 projects that got a perfect score or near perfect score within 2 points. It was all 3 of our projects. And you just see the history kids looking behind us like, what has just happened in my universe? And I'm like, hey, you can't be counting us out. Okay. Like we grew up on agri-science. We grew up at, CDE contests and all the things. Like we know how to work hard. And so yes, just indirectly, it's been beneficial to just get to be on the periphery of your years of work. And you are still very highly regarded. Because you're not going to find me in a triathlon anytime soon. Lifting heavy stuff, maybe. Triathlon, I don't know.
You could do this. You could do this. Yeah. Proper training, we get you through one.
I will put it on my challenge list.
Yeah, don't put it on the bucket list because you're being held to a bucket list.
Right? Yeah.
The one thing I have left to do, I have several things on a list, but I want to swim the Golden Gate. I've done Alcatraz. I want to swim the Golden Gate.
Dude.
So I'm not sure when that's going to happen. There's one in October. I just got to see how I have to see how that lines up with stuff. But yeah, right now I'm kind of tired of doing everything. So I appreciate this.
We appreciate you.
I'm very, very humbled. You guys embarrass me with some of your commentary. I did what I did to the best of my abilities. Period. That's it. And if you get accolades along the way, then so be it. But if you're doing things along the way to try and get those accolades, then they're not truly deserved. So, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Darol. We appreciate you coming on. And this is actually our last episode we're recording before we're going to speak live next week at summer conference.
Oh, way cool.
That's going to be pretty cool.
I'm going to go over, Teresa and I are going to go over Monday for Hall of Fame because Joe DeGrazia is going into the Hall of Fame. Such a deserving. Joe and I competed against each other in high school on ag mechanics teams. He was at Santa Rosa and I was at Petaluma. And so it'll be wonderful to see him get in. Him and I are going up to Oakdale High School on Monday to do a program review for, is it whoever the ag teacher is at Oakdale? I can never remember names anymore. Is it Isaac Robles? I think is it.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think he's in that.
So Joe and I have done that a couple times. Go to review programs and just give our input. So I'll go over there Monday for that. That'll be Monday afternoon, and then Tuesday our contest revisions, and we do the state finals ag welding contest at Merced. And there's been a revision put forth. It's to open the contest up out of rotation for some stuff. So I need to be there to make some presentations and do some stuff too. So, well, that's cool. Maybe we'll run into you.
Yeah.
So you're coming in from Idaho?
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's way cool.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. And at least we've talked about this, Colleen and I have. I don't remember because I may have been intoxicated, but I'm pretty sure we've met in person before at Bull's Tavern at one point in time. But I can't confirm. No, we've never met in person. So this will be kind of a cool deal for us too.
I find that amusing.
Yeah.
No, I remember, Colleen, when you were teaching, I remember your name, but I never worked with you or that type of thing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Well, whatever you give them, whatever. So you guys are doing a workshop?
Mm-hmm.
Way cool.
Yeah, roundtable discussion, kind of this situation, but in person, and hopefully with some guided questions that we're going to collect ahead of time so that we can help other people, dig in a little bit deeper and, have some real conversations.
Well, do like George Patton said, give it to them loud and profane. That way they remember it.
Amen.
I love it.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and we'll be seeing you next Monday.